All right, YouTube, time for occult literature video number 41, The True Red Book of Appin. Now, this is going to require a little bit of explanation. I'll try to get to it. Link in the description to where you can purchase this work. It's 47 pages long, so it's a booklet, but it's a standard, fairly standard grimoire length sort of manuscript. Second link as well to my books blog, where there are some other works available that might associate with being a little bit more authentic, things that were written by Agrippa or something like that. The True Red Book of Appin, the Grimoire of Vlad the Impaler, the Grimoire of Empires. What a lovely subtitle there. Backstory. The Red Book of Appin did exist. It existed many centuries ago. It may have been a grimoire of sorts in the sense that manuscripts that largely dwell upon herbal medicine and simple folk charms to, protect cattle, protect you while you're traveling, are grimoires. That's what they're considered. They contain these it's like the Little Albert. Most of the stuff in the Little Albert doesn't have to do with pentacles and wands and summoning demons. It has to do with, this protects you against the rabid dog. This protects you against a wolf. This will keep you from getting the plague, stuff like that. So it is a grimoire, potentially. That being said, nobody actually has a copy of the original Red Book of Appin. It's an extinct book as far as we know. There is another work called the Book of Appin that was released within the last few years by a demonolator that claims to be a grimoire for Vlad the Impaler, and then quickly forgets that Vlad the Impaler was an extremely pious Orthodox Christian who used to impale people who were not Christians, and suggests that he was actually a rabid, blood-drinking devil worshipper, and that you should basically be the same. Now, ignoring for a moment the fact that that historical context is completely and utterly wrong, I've read that specific work. It has numerous grammatical errors. Its images are kind of fucked up in format, and its format overall leaves a little bit to be desired. So I set out to make an occult fiction under a similar title that was better, something a little bit longer, much more refined, better illustrations and better illustration quality, without all of the grammatical errors, that had some historical context in it, because obviously the very idea of a Red Book of Appin has people within the occult realm intrigued, yet they didn't have anything specifically to actually buy on the subject, because the only thing available was a demonolatry hand tract that was released probably under this title to take advantage of the fact that it got some attention, and therefore it would reach a larger audience and hopefully convert a few dozen extra people to devil worship or something like that. But I'm interested in historical context, especially literary history. So I set out to make something that was that at least looked authentic, sort of like the Necronomicon. The Necronomicon, in the strictest sense, as I've covered in my general occult videos, is not a grimoire in the sense that it is necessarily based on some older pagan tradition from Sumeria. But it is a grimoire in the fact that it follows the correct sort of rites and rituals step by step. It has seals. It has the names of pagan figures within it. It has everything that it needs. It can be used as an actual sort of black magic manuscript by somebody who believes that magic can be formulated in the sense of an egregore or something like that. Not necessarily if they're a complete purist and they believe everything has to be by the book as it was written down thousands or hundreds of years ago, but somebody who doesn't believe that should have no problem with it. In that sense, you could use this work that I've released as a literal grimoire if that's what you're interested in doing, but in the interest of full disclosure, neither this nor the other Red Book of Appin released years ago by a demonolator is based on the original Red Book of Appin. It's just not. We don't know exactly what its content is. The secondary materials mentioning it apparently speak of curing cattle diseases and stuff like that. So it could have at least been a natural science tract. And of course, when you're talking about the Renaissance or the medieval era or even up well into the Enlightenment, when you have something on medicine at all, typically it's half superstition, a lot of it's herb lore anyway, and then there are a bunch of folk traditions to try to keep things from getting sick or cure your crops or chase away a rabid dog or whatever, all of which are basically what we would consider to be a form of at least folk magic, if not something more elaborate, more high ritualism or so forth. So this work is actually, its spelling is proper, its format actually looks good, its images are high enough quality to be included in a self-published work that is isn't a piece of crap. And I like to think that I upstaged somebody who obviously thought, apparently, that Vlad the Impaler worshipped the devil, when in reality he was a law and order leader who was respected even by most of his enemies. If, by the way, one thing I will say as an aside, the Turks weren't the ones saying Vlad is the devil, Vlad is evil. They called him the Impaler, but they never really had that much of a problem with him until the point at which he started butchering tens of thousands of Mehmet's men. Up until then, most of the more slanderous and fantastical things written about Vlad came from German sources. They came from the progeny of the merchants who he impaled or enslaved because of their usury on the local population. The German merchants and bankers that had settled in parts of his country deliberately were disobedient. They completely ignored his dictates, number one. He couldn't allow that. They ground down the local population, number two, and he wanted to replace them with people who he could directly trust. So he would take the lower nobility and he'd kill off the higher nobility, who were all foreigners anyway, and he'd put the lower nobles in their spots. So he knew they were relying upon him. All their wealth came from, hey, Vlad likes you. They weren't going to disobey anything he said. If he said impale your whole family, they're going to deliver up their whole family for impalement. So that's just a little bit of a historical aside. But no, he was a pious Orthodox Christian of his age, doing exactly what any other pious Orthodox Christian leader did. He was not a devil worshiper. That sort of nonsense really needs to end. So yes, it is a work of occult fiction. It's not actually based upon the authentic, true, genuine, one and only real, ancient, centuries-old Book of Appin. But it's about as close as you're probably going to fucking get, unless you want to literally go back, unless you find it buried in a tomb somewhere in Europe, and you find the original manuscript in like vellum or something like that. This is as close as it gets. So again, link in the description to where you can purchase this, admittedly fictional. See, I'm willing to admit it. I'm not going to pretend that it's actually real as in a historical sense. Where you can purchase this work, second link to my books blog. That's about all. Peace out.